detail.
All right, it's March 26th, 2016. It's about 5:49 p.m. Could you state your name, please?
Maurice Bierschbach,
Great. And where are you from?
Webster, South Dakota.
Were you born and raised here?
I was born right at Webster.
Awesome. Okay, how many brothers and sisters did you have?
I had 3 brothers.
3 brothers? Okay.
No
Were they-
sisters.
Were they all older or younger than you?
2 were older and 1 younger.
Awesome. Mother, father, how was that growing up? I should say, how was family dynamics? Did you have a mother and father all the way growing up?
No, I lost my father when I was 5.
Okay, and could you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, this might be a little bit gruesome to some of you people, but here's the way it went. The one morning my dad went to Bristol to get some parts for a piece of machinery, and he came home, and then we were sitting in our dining or kitchen waiting for dinner, waiting for him to come in, and he didn't come in. And so pretty soon they said, well, where the heck is he? And so they spread out looking for him. I went with my mother outside to look for him, and I don't remember just who all was with us or anything. But anyway, we got started going up the hill toward the machine shed, and here came somebody walking, and they said, well, your husband is dead. And that my mother fainted right there. So I was under no supervision whatsoever because they were watching my mother and stuff. And I followed. They went in the machine shed, and they found my dad. He was hanging by a rope. And I saw everything. I saw them cut him down and lay him on some lumber and stuff. And I don't know, but nobody knew what. Anyway, I saw the whole works taken down and finally putting where the hearse came and put him in. Then, when it came time for the funeral, they didn't let me go to the funeral. They didn't think I knew what was going on or something. So they had my the lady that was she was a hired girl. She stayed with me, so I didn't go to the funeral. At the funeral, as I understand it, my 2 older brothers, they followed the casket right down the church and everything, but they didn't think I knew what was going on, but I did. And anyway, then it's hard to tell what the reason, what happened. My dad was a World War I veteran, and I know nothing about his service or anything. And then he had some problems, mental problems, and was taking shock treatments down at Big Stone City. I remember going down there for his treatments and stuff, and we think that that's one of the reasons how this happened to him, is that those shock treatments probably got him off or something. Then, after the funeral, my Aunt Rose stayed at our place for 2 weeks with my mother. And also my Uncle Leo would come up from Minnesota and help her out. But just think of this, my mother, when this happened, she was 5 months pregnant with my younger brother at that time. Just think, we had a dairy herd of about 30 cows, and we had 2 hired men and a hired girl. And anyway, here my mother was left to make all the decisions and everything. It's really something. I can't believe that she went through and put up with all this and everything worked out. You all got any questions?
Well, I mean, that's very interesting. That's very intense, of course, growing up on you. Uh, so for your mother, then raising the four of you by herself, did she keep the hired hands and keep the hired
Oh,
woman?
okay. She kept the hired men and the hired women. I said we had about 30 cows, a dairy herd down in the barn. And the only property where we lived, we had 80 acres, and that's all that she had custody of it. And then she stayed there for about a year. We had a half section out in the country, and so we had to move there. The Bierschbachs were not helping us out one bit. I'll never forget this. That why they didn't. My grandpa didn't help us. My uncles didn't help us. My one uncle that lived in Lemon did help us and stop it. But that's about the story of what I went through.
Just to kind of expand on that a little bit, did you guys have a falling out with the Bierschbach? So they just for some reason just
No,
didn't
no falling out. There was no discussion, but they just never helped us.
really?
And my grandpa had quite a bit of land and stuff. None of us kids got a nickel from the whole property there.
Wow,
It kind of shows you how they left us. I'll never forget that.
yeah, it's very interesting that they wouldn't help out like that.
Yeah, but the Kerrigans, they weren't as capable as some people. But my Uncle John and Aunt Rose in Aberdeen were very good to us, and we went up there quite often. And then my Uncle Leo was a mail carrier, and he came up quite often, and he really helped us. And my grandma had come up once in a while.
I see. Well, that's very interesting. So I guess while living in the Midwest, did you ever have any like ambitions of like leaving the Midwest, or did you know a lot what was going on in the rest of the country at the time or anything?
I don't know. I graduated from high school, and then I was deferred. My two brothers were in college. I was deferred to. Then we had rented that farm near the dairy farm out to another guy, and we had about 10 cows out there, and they were supposed to help me and everything. And then they decided to move away, and I got stuck with the farm. I was deferred from the army for a few months, and then my brother and I was in high school yet. Claire, my next oldest brother, came and took over.
Okay. So you kind of felt like you got stuck with the farm then, like you had
Yeah.
ambitions to go out and see the world, or
Well, I don't have quite an answer for what all happened there, but anyway, that's what happened. My brother Claire then took over the farm, and then I went into service and went in the Navy, and then it's a long story. Good in the Navy. When I went in the Navy, I just spent 7 years in boot camp in. Do you want to hear this part of the story?
yep, this is great.
7 weeks in boot camp, and they shipped me right out to an aircraft carrier, and I got sea pay from the day I got out there until I got out. I never got to go to any school to train me. All my training was done aboard ship. And anyway, I was out in the South Pacific on an aircraft carrier. Then I'll tell you, there's a lot of funny or different things that happened in my life. When I got out of the Navy, I came home on the train, and on the same train that I was on, I didn't see him when he was on the train. There was a guy that went to school with my brother Dennis, and he said, are you going to go to college? And I said, oh, I don't know. I want to look around. This was the 15th of August or so, just about time for school to start. And he lived at Eden, and he said, well, I'm coming through Monday. If you want to come along with me, we'll look for a room. And then I said, well, I don't know. So he stopped on Monday, and I went with him down to Brookings, and we looked all day Monday to find a place to stay. There was 1,000 veterans landed in Brookings, so the housing was real tight. Anyway, we did find a room, and I went to school. I didn't get good grades at first, and we did a lot of partying, a bunch, 1,000 veterans on the campus, you can imagine. And then when he only had the 1 year left, then I got a new roommate, and he decided to be a student, and I decided to be a student, and I ended up in the upper 2/5 of my class because I was a student. So that's. Anyway, I got through college.
That's pretty cool. So, just to backtrack just a little bit for you, what was your job in the Navy? Like,
on a 40 millimeter cannon.
okay.
Yeah.
And so you got to shoot that then, or you were the
Yeah.
loader?
Yeah.
Or-
I was on training it up and down and side. That was my job. That part of the job, and then 8 out of 24 hours. No, 8 out of 24 hours, I was on watch up at the crow's nest. It'd be like 4 to 8 at night, and then 4 to 8 in the morning, and then 8 to 12 it rotated. But so we were busy all the time. Besides, I was in charge of the anchor windlass and the catapult room to keep that up. So you didn't have one spare moment of free time.
Kind of kept yourself busy then?
Yep.
Did you have a lot of friends on the ship?
Not a lot.
Not a lot?
Not a lot. We didn't have time to sit around and, except when we were up on watch from the crow's nest, we visited about, but otherwise we didn't have a lot of friends. We were busy.
I see. I guess, was there a lot of Midwestern boys with you? Do you know at all?
No.
Or?
There was one guy from Minneapolis that was a good friend of mine, and I can't think, but anyway, that friend I kept in touch with for quite a while.
Well, good. Another question I was going to ask. So this is kind of going a little bit back again to where you were talking about your schooling. Would you have gone to college had you not been in the military and been on the GI Bill and all that kind of stuff?
Probably not, because when I was in high school, I did well to get C grades. In fact, the guys I run around with, they poked fun if you took a book home or anything. I was with the wrong class when I was in high school, and I ended up with the right guy in college. And that just shows what can happen.
That's good. What was your major in college?
Ag education, that's to teach agriculture in high school, and then a farm mechanics minor.
Okay. So you were kind of go back to the farm then afterwards?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I guess I know this previously for everybody listening, that my grandfather actually taught at several schools. So what made you want to become a teacher?
I don't know. I kind of liked the ag program, and I had to do something. Oh, I would have liked to be an engineer. I'm kind of mechanically inclined and stuff like that. But when I saw how many got into college for engineering, I thought there won't even be a job for all of us, which was wrong. They all got jobs.
Really?
But anyway, that's why I didn't stay in that.
Okay. So what was your teaching career like a little bit then?
Well, I don't know how long you want to make this deal, but anyway, when I got out of college, then they had these veterans ag programs to teach veterans how to farm. And so I thought, well, I want to live at home, and I want to do a little bit of farming on the side, so I didn't want to go to Webster because all these guys were out of the service 4 years, and I was in college 4 years. I'm supposed to come out and tell them how to farm. Anyway, so I went over to Summit, and I was going to teach there. They didn't know anything about my background or anything. And the Monday when I was going to sign the contract to go over to Summit, the superintendent from Webster called me up. He said he wanted to see me. Well, here some of the veterans had been to the Legion meeting, and they said that I would to get a hold of me because that's the only way they could have the program if they had an instructor. So he was given the mandatory to get me to be their teacher. Well, anyway, I did sign the contract to teach at Webster, and I'll never forget the moments when I was driving out of Webster. I thought about that again. Here I was in college 4 years. They were 4 years farming, and I'm supposed to teach some agriculture. And anyway, as it turned out wonderful. They were so good to me. We just buried the guy's wife yesterday that was in the class, but those veterans were so good to me, and it turned out so well, I can't believe it. Then I taught 3 years there, and then I went to teach vocational ag.
Okay. So while you're teaching all these different classes and everything, did you meet Grandma during that period, or?
The way I met my wife, one day the guy that lived 4 miles north of us, Dale Carr, called up and wondered if my brother Jerry and I wanted to go to the dance in Watertown. So he had a coupe. We went down there and we just parked, and there a car pulled in where we could see it, and 4 girls got out. And I kind of kept an eye on what they looked like or how they're dressed or something. And I knew they were strays if 4 of them came in the car. So then I danced with my wife once or so, and then I kind of liked her, and I danced a few more times, and then asked to take her home, but I didn't have a car. But she had that car that was her boyfriend's car that she was driving. She took me into Watertown, and then I started dating her, and that's what happened.
Okay.
She was from Nassau, Minnesota, and I was from Webster. How we ever got together is I'll never know.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's kind of a little bit of fate there playing.
Yeah.
So how'd you guys settle in Webster then? Is that just because that's where you were, and not in Nassau, or?
Well, while I was married then, when I got married while I was teaching at Veterans Ag, and we lived in my mother's house there on that small dairy farm. And then, now I'm lost for what happened next. Anyway, then when I got through with the Veterans Ag program, then I moved to Waubay and started the ag program there. And I taught there 3 years, but the farming around Waubay, especially out north of Waubay, it wasn't very good. It wasn't very good farmland or anything. And so I only stayed there 3 years. And then my mother was working in Minneapolis, and she heard about a job in Minnesota. And so I went over to see about that, and I got that job, and I stayed there 6 years. Then, in the meantime, my brother Claire and Jerry were farming together, and he drowned. And they were in a partnership, and they wanted me to come back, and my mother wanted me to come back. So that's how I got back.
If you don't mind me asking this question, how did he drown, or what was the circumstances around that?
He was water skiing, and he didn't have his life jacket.
Okay. So he couldn't swim then, or?
No, I guess not. I don't know. I wasn't around.
And what age were you, I guess, when that happened?
Oh, now you pinned me down on age. What age would I be? That happened in about 63. So if I was born in 25, you run it through your head.
About 35 then?
Yeah, I suppose.
Sounds good. So just was kind of wondering a little bit, but
Yeah.
So is that when you and Claire then went into business?
You're right.
Okay. And how many years did you do that then?
Until I retired, almost. He retired 3 years or 4 years before I did. He was 2 years older than me. So then I went till I was 65.
Okay. And you lived on the farm then?
Yeah.
For the rest of that? Okay. And then did Claire already was probably on the farm then?
Yeah.
Okay. just for everybody listening in or watching, my grandparents lived on a farm with another house on it that was Claire's house, which is my grandfather's brother, of course. And so I had grown up knowing where that was and everything. So just for background for everybody. But so then, as you were kind of going through your farming career, this is kind of a little bit of a broader question, but since you had time in the service and had left South Dakota, did that give you did you pay attention to the country's politics more than you would have maybe if you had just stayed in South Dakota?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? You kind of just went back to just being focused on more of South Dakotan politics?
Yeah, that's what I think. I don't have an answer for that.
Okay. Let's see here. So when did you start having kids, I guess?
We had one miscarriage a year after we were married, and then we had our Doug 2 years after we were married. And this might be interesting to you. Then 2 years later, first of all, when our first boy was born, we drove to Watertown, and they sent me up to the room to wait. And when I got set on there, they said, "Say, you got a baby boy." That's how quick it came.
Wow.
The next, when our Bruce was born, I was in school at Jeffers, Minnesota, and I was called home, and the baby came. I delivered the baby right there.
You delivered the baby?
Yes, I did.
And that was Uncle Bruce?
Right.
Wow. Okay.
I didn't know you was going to get into that. Yeah. I've had a lot of experiences.
Yeah, that's pretty intense. Wow. You didn't have to deliver like Uncle Scott then, or did you?
No, we arranged to have him a few days early or something. No, we didn't take any more chances.
Okay.
But it turned out good. I've delivered animals and everything, and you just do what you have to do.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds pretty intense. I mean, were you a little bit worried and nervous there while going through that?
I can't tell you. Just did it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty intense. Yeah. So the boy is going to high school and everything. What am I trying to ask here?
I don't know how long. Can you go on and on with this?
Oh, yeah, you can go as long as you'd like to.
Okay. I went to grade school 4 years out in the country, and I went to parochial school 4 years in town. And then I'll get into this. When my older brother got ready to go to high school, my mother had been writing letters back and forth with my aunt out in Lemon, South Dakota. And she said, "I don't know if he's going to board uptown or is he going to drive with somebody or what we're going to do." And she wrote back and said, "Uncle Nick says he can come out here and work for his room and board." So he went out there as a freshman. And now to work for your room and board, I don't know, because my uncle had a family, but they were about 6-8 years younger than him. So he got in high school, and my uncle got him in band and got him in FFA and got him in football and basketball. And he really treated my brother real well and was proud of him, and he did well. Well, that went on for 3 years, and when my brother had come home, he was better than the rest of us because he was treated so well, anything he wanted to do. So my mother said then that he had to go to school in Webster. So he went his senior year in Webster.
Wow, that was kind of probably a shocker for him then.
Yeah.
A little bit. So what about you then? Did you go to Aberdeen then and come back, or?
I'm trying to think. Then, about the time I got ready for high school, I'm a little bit dismal in what happened when, but Claire drove the car, and I rode in with him till he graduated, and then I drove, and I picked up the neighbor Wagner kids and took them to school.
Okay.
So.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And so you had mentioned this before, I guess. So schooling wasn't a priority, obviously. You said in high school and younger grades.
No, probably not.
Probably not. That's okay. So I mean, it turned out okay. But so after going through college, and since you said that you kind of turned yourself around in college and became a good student, did you recognize that that was probably a good thing for your children, that you wanted your children to go to colleges?
You betcha. Yep. It just shows that the atmosphere you're in and everything has an effect on what you do. And if you looked at my high school grades and then how good the grades I got in college, it's unbelievable.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So, well, let's see. I guess that's about all I have. Do you have anything else that you want to say? Do you have any special stories from your time in the military? Any other fun times from living on the farm or college or anything like that you'd like to share?
I don't believe so.
Don't believe so?
No.
Okay. Well, I thank you for your time, and I guess we'll be signing off.
Yeah. Over to the neighbors, and I didn't even knock the door. I just set them inside the door and came right home because this was happening pretty fast. And then anyway, after he was born, then I called the neighbor later, and she was laughing. She said how it all happened.
Yeah, I'll sit there, Doug was.
Get pretty intense there, just Doug all of a sudden popping out, but.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things in my life, and yours too, I suppose. I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't know that you had walked in and saw your dad hanging. That was
Walking toward the machine shed, and then that guy, whoever it was, came and said he's dead, and she just fainted right there. Well, what should I do? So I walked onto the machine shed, of course, unsupervised through the whole works.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say this day and age, you'd kind of hold someone back a little bit,
Well, she would have held me back, but she was unconscious.
Yeah.
No, I'll never forget that. And then that same hired girl that was with my mother, that when it came for the funeral, they didn't think I knew what was going on, so I didn't get to go to the funeral.
Yeah.
She babysat for me.
Huh.
It's funny how I can remember those details, and that's way back in 1930.
Yeah, I was gonna say, must have just been that kind of an intense moment, I guess.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things that happened in my life that I forgot all about. But by God, that I'll tell you, there are different things stick in your mind.
Do you actually remember any other I don't know, for me, 9/11 kind of sticks out. Do you remember Kennedy and Man on the Moon, anything like that?
Not really. They don't stand out in my mind.
Don't stand out as much. So, huh?
No.
Your mom had a fire in the house, didn't she?
Okay. You want to know how that happened? She was washing good clothes in gasoline. And they were washing ironing, but we had a gas iron. And some way or other, that was too close, and that tub of gas started on fire. So she picked up that tub and went out the door with it. At the same time she went out the door, the hired girl ran out the front door, and there was a draft, and that blew the fire into her face.
Oh.
And she was in the hospital many weeks. And
In that hired girl, whatever.
What?
Not your mother.
My mother.
Your mother got
the mother went out the back door, and this girl went out. As soon as she opened the door, that flames came right at my mother.
Why was she washing clothes in gasoline?
They did it in those days.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'll bet you there wasn't a gallon and a half of gasoline in there that she was working with, and it wasn't a very big flame, and she could just carry it out until that front door open, it blew right in her face and her skin, her arms.
Wow.
And she was in the hospital many weeks. And that was a long summer. Then she was incapacitated, so she spent quite a bit of time down with her mother in Milan, Minnesota. And we had hired men and hired girls taking care of us a lot of time.
So you stayed at the farm while she was recouping then. Yeah, that was.
And a guy that worked for us, Sylvester Rippiger, his mother lived in town, and they were so good to us. They invited us in and stuff. And there was a lot of people that were so good to us, like the Wagners and Warriors, and I shouldn't remember who all was so darn good to us. But those were tough times, I'll tell you. And then the economy wasn't so good in those days.
Yeah, went through the dirty 30s and
Yeah.
the stock market crash.
Yeah, do you actually remember a lot about that, like about the dirty 30s?
Huh?
Do you remember a lot about the dirty 30s? And
Yeah.
You used to have to hunt, didn't you say you had to go hunt pheasants a lot of times to put food on the table? And...
No, I don't think we did that. We used to butcher a hog or two and a beef and make bologna. I can remember bologna rings in the basement hanging all along. We never were hungry.
Okay.
okay,
We had plenty of food.
really?
Yeah.
Was it kind of like that for everybody, like out in the
Us
Midwest? Or was it-
farmers, we ate good. We butchered and
Really?
we had chickens. And the pheasant hunting wasn't that big yet. We went at that.
Okay.
Was there still like dust storms going around and everything then?
Oh,
Or-
yeah. I can remember one Sunday afternoon that everybody had their lights on in their house. It was that dark.
Really?
Yeah.
So the ground was still blowing up and everything, but you guys were eating okay. So was
Well, that storm probably just came a day and a half, and then it was over.
but I mean, like, so was it really dry up here then in South
Oh,
Dakota?
yeah.
But like, I'm just wondering, like, you see a lot of pictures of like, just windswept plains with nothing growing and everything, but yet you guys were eating okay, so something must have been growing.
Yeah. And where we lived, it wasn't as bad. We were in that lower tier of farmland from Kickers down to our place. That was heavier soil and stuff. We weren't in the midst of it, but even the higher people, they had cows to milk and calves to butcher and hogs to feed and butcher.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, rough time.
Yeah.